Some promises are never meant to be broken. Some vows do not fade with time or death. In a forgotten village beside a river that never sleeps, a girl drowned with betrayal in her heart, and her spirit refused to let go. This is not a story about love. It is a story about what happens when love turns into a curse. Listen carefully, because once a vow is spoken, the river remembers. Chapter 1. The River That Never Sleeps. No one in Bang Kra Thum village dared to speak the river's name after nightfall. By day, it was merely a quiet stretch of water, reflecting the dull gray sky and the rotting wooden roofs along its banks. But when night came, the river changed. No moonlight could ever reach its depths. No matter how full or bright the moon was, the water turned thick and pitch black, like a substance that did not belong to this world. The elders of the village said it was because the river never slept. It stayed awake to listen to the cries of those who had died unjustly. The wind rising from the river always carried a cold, fishy scent, like wet hair left to rot after endless nights of rain. Whenever the wind stirred, the village dogs would begin to howl, long and broken sounds, as if their throats were being slowly crushed. That night, Bang Kra Thum sank into an unnatural silence. No insects, no oars, not even the rustle of leaves. Only the sound of bare footsteps pressing into wet earth. A young woman emerged from the narrow path leading to the riverbank. Her white dress was smeared with mud, the hem heavy and soaked with water. Long black hair spilled down her back, hiding most of her thin face. She walked slowly, as if every step dragged something unseen behind her. Her name was Pimchan. There was no emotion on her face, no tears, no trembling, only wide, hollow eyes reflecting the warped glow of moonlight on the river's surface. It was the gaze of someone who had already died inside long before death ever reached her body. When Pimchan stopped at the riverbank, the wind suddenly died. The water lay flat and still, like a black mirror, waiting. And from the depths below, it felt as though something was lifting its gaze and looking back at her. Chapter 2. The Promise Beneath the Bodhi Tree. The Bodhi tree by the banks of the Bang Kra Thum River had stood there for so long that no one in the village remembered who first planted it. Its roots rose above the ground like the gnarled fingers of an old hand, clutching the muddy earth and gripping the riverbank in quiet desperation. The elders said the tree had witnessed more vows than any human in the village, and because of that, it never forgot. Pimchan and Krit used to come there every late afternoon. When the sun was about to set, pale golden light filtered through the leaves, and the wind from the river carried a cool, damp breath. Pimchan liked to lean her back against the trunk, listening to her own heartbeat blend with the gentle sound of water against the shore. Krit would sit across from her, always holding her hand tightly, as if letting go for even a moment might cause her to disappear. 7 years. 7 rainy seasons passed beneath that Bodhi tree. Once, Pimchan asked softly, "Are you ever afraid that I might disappear?" Krit smiled and took out a small knife, carving their 2 names into the bark, deeply, deliberately. "Only when this river runs dry." Then he made his vow. There was no monk, no incense, only the wind, the water, and the Bodhi tree as witnesses. "If I ever betray you," Krit said, his voice low, "my soul will be dragged to the bottom of this river. I will never find peace." Pimchan did not find those words frightening. She thought they were beautiful. She believed that a man willing to curse his own soul in the name of love would never abandon her. She did not know that in places like Bang Kra Thum, a vow was never spoken just to be heard. That night, when Pimchan left the Bodhi tree alone, she did not turn back. She did not see the trunk shudder slightly in the wind. She did not see dark sap seep from the carved names, thick and sticky like dried blood. And she did not hear the river stir softly, like a long breath, newly awakened. Chapter 3. The Third Person. The day Krit left Bang Kra Thum for Bangkok, an unseasonal rain fell. It was not a heavy downpour, only scattered, cold drops that fell slowly, just enough to turn the dirt road at the edge of the village slick and muddy. Pimchan stood beneath the eaves of her house, gripping the hem of her blouse, watching Krit's figure disappear beyond the line of nipa palms. He turned back once and waved. Pimchan believed that wave was a promise of return. In the beginning, Krit still sent letters, thin paper, uneven handwriting. He wrote about the crowded city, about exhausting work, about a future that still seemed full of hope. Pimchan carefully folded each letter and placed it inside a small wooden box, setting it beneath her mother's altar. She waited. She waited through the rainy season. She waited through the season of rising waters. She waited as the Bodhi tree by the river shed its leaves and grew them back again. Then the letters became fewer. From one each month, to one every few months, and then nothing at all. Pimchan began to dream strange dreams. In them, she stood beneath the Bodhi tree, calling Krit's name, but behind him, another woman held his hand. The woman's face was blurred, indistinct, yet her laughter was sharp and painfully clear. Pimchan woke with a crushing weight on her chest, her heart beating out of rhythm. When the truth finally arrived, it came quietly, nothing like the storm Pimchan had imagined. A distant relative returned from Bangkok and, while drinking tea, spoke without thinking. "Krit, he's getting married, the factory owner's daughter. A big wedding." Pimchan did not ask any questions. Her ears rang, as if river water had flooded her head. The sounds around her warped and drifted away. She stood, bowed politely to the visitor, and walked out into the yard like a shadow. That night, Pimchan went to the Bodhi tree. She did not cry. She silently removed the necklace Krit had given her and placed it at the foot of the tree. Then she touched the carved names, now darkened with age. Black sap dripped from the trunk, falling into her palm, cold and sticky. And in the darkness, the river stirred, as if it had heard. Chapter 4. The Death No One Heard. The night Pimchan stepped out of her house, Bang Kra Thum was asleep. Not the peaceful kind of sleep, but a heavy silence, like the entire village had its mouth forcibly covered. Oil lamps in the wooden houses had long gone out. Doors were shut, bamboo blinds were drawn. No one saw Pimchan leave. She carried no lamp. She wore no sandals. She was dressed only in a thin white gown, the one she had once planned to wear on her wedding day. The path leading to the river was slick with night dew. Mud clung to her bare feet, ice cold. Each step left a clear footprint behind her, as if the earth itself was trying to remember her final presence. When Pimchan reached the riverbank, the water was rising. The river that night was silent. No waves, no wind. Its surface lay flat and still, reflecting her figure perfectly, a faint, trembling silhouette that no longer fully belonged to the world of the living. Pimchan stood there for a long time. She remembered the vow beneath the Bodhi tree, Krit's low, steady voice, the way he had held her hand and sworn he would never let go. Her heart ached until it went numb. There were no tears, no cries for help, only a single, unsteady breath that dissolved into the night. Pimchan took one step forward. Water touched her ankles, cold enough to steal sensation. Another step. The water reached her knees. Her white dress soaked through, growing heavy, dragging her body downward. Pimchan leaned forward slightly. In that instant, something beneath the river seemed to move, a reverse current, a gentle yet persistent pull. No one heard Pimchan fall into the water. There was no scream, only a single circle of ripples spreading outward and then disappearing. The next morning, villagers found bare footprints leading straight into the river. They stopped. They did not turn back. 3 days later, Pimchan's body surfaced in the quiet bend of the river. Her eyes were still open. Her lips were tightly pressed together, as if death itself had never been the end. Chapter 5. The Funeral Without Incense Smoke. Pimchan's funeral took place on an afternoon without sunlight. The sky hung low and gray, so close it felt as though one could reach up and touch it. A weak wind slipped through the wooden houses, not strong enough to stir the funeral banners, yet heavy enough to carry a damp, rotten smell that settled over the village road. The coffin was placed in the center of the main room. No one dared to open the lid. When Pimchan's body was found, her eyes had been wide open, so wide that no one had the courage to close them. One woman in the village tried. The moment her fingers touched Pimchan's icy eyelids, she screamed and collapsed, choking as if invisible hands were tightening around her throat. Incense was lit and went out. Once. Twice. 3 times. Even though there was no strong wind. The smoke did not rise. It curled low along the floor, crawling like thin snakes before dissolving into nothing. The elders began murmuring prayers, their voices trembling. Dogs howled throughout the afternoon. Not fierce howls, but long, strangled sounds, like crying twisted into something inhuman. Each time the dogs cried out, the wooden beams of the house creaked, as if someone unseen had just walked past. When the coffin was lifted, everyone noticed the bottom was soaked through. Water dripped onto the floor, leaving dark stains, even though no one had spilled anything. A man bent down and touched it, then jerked his hand back. His face drained of color. Cold, like river water. He whispered. The elderly monk invited to chant stood silently before Pimchan's coffin for a long time. He did not ring his bell or begin the sutras. He only placed his hand on the wooden lid and closed his eyes. After a while, he shook his head. She died of resentment, he said slowly, not of drowning. No one asked anything else. Because in that moment, everyone heard a soft knock from inside the coffin. One knock. Very faint, but loud enough to freeze the entire room. Chapter 6. The knock at 2 a.m. On the 7th night after Pimchan's funeral, Bang Kra Thum began to lose sleep. Not because of noise, but because of anticipation. Everyone woke at the same moment, 2 a.m., as if an invisible hand had shaken each of them awake. No one knew why they were conscious, only that their hearts were pounding, their throats were dry, and the air carried the cold, fishy scent of river water seeping through every crack. Then the knocking began. Knock. 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 3 times. Slow. Even. Not loud. Not forceful. Like fingertips patiently tapping on wood. The first house to open its door belonged to Somchai. He lit an oil lamp, his hands trembling as he slid back the wooden bolt. Outside, there was no one, only the ground, soaked through, though it had not rained all day. He closed the door and told himself he had imagined it. The next morning, a wet handprint appeared on his wooden door. 5 fingers. Long. Unnaturally slender. The water did not dry all day. The following night, the knocking came again, at another house. Then another. There was no pattern. No variation in time. Always 2 a.m. Those who opened their doors saw the same thing, no one standing outside. Yet by morning, signs of river water appeared inside their homes, on the walls, on the floors, even pressed into their pillows, as if someone had lain there during the night. One child woke screaming, crying uncontrollably. "Mother, she's standing at the foot of my bed. Her hair is wet, she's staring at me." After that night, no one dared to open their door when the knocking came. But the knocking did not stop. It moved from the front door, to the windows, then to the back walls of the houses. Some swore they heard wet breathing right beside their ears, even when no one was there. Others woke with icy wrists, as if something had been holding them. The Bang Kra Thum River began to rise unnaturally at night. The water lapped softly against the banks, steady, rhythmic, exactly like the sound of knocking. And inside the darkened houses, no one said it aloud, but everyone understood. Pimchan had come home. Chapter 7. Krit returns. Krit returned to Bang Kra Thum in the late afternoon, just as the sun slipped behind the nipa palms and mist began to rise from the river. The car stopped at the edge of the village for a long moment, as if even the driver hesitated to step out. When Krit finally placed his foot on the familiar ground, the first thing he felt was not nostalgia, but cold. Not the cold of wind or evening air, but a chill that crept from deep within his chest and climbed slowly up his throat. The village had not changed much. The wooden houses were still old. The dirt road was still slick with mud. But the way the villagers looked at Krit was different. No greetings, no questions, only heavy, averted gazes, like they were looking at someone who should not have returned. That night, Krit slept in his old house. He dreamed. In the dream, the room was flooded. Water covered the floor, rising from his ankles to his knees. Ice cold. Pimchan stood in the corner, her long hair dripping, her white dress clinging to her body. She did not come closer. She only stared at him with hollow eyes. "You promised," she said. Krit jolted awake. His throat burned, as if invisible fingers had tightened around it. Dark bruises shaped like handprints marked his neck. Cold to the touch, he turned on the lamp, gasping, sweat pouring down his back though the night was not hot. From that night on, Krit could not sleep through a full night. Whenever he drifted off, he heard water dripping somewhere inside the house, wet footsteps crossing the wooden floor. Sometimes, he felt the bed sink slightly, as if someone had just sat beside him. Once, he saw a trail of water stretching from the front door all the way to his bed. No one in the village had entered his house. Yet every night, the river was there. On the third morning, Krit looked into the mirror and saw a long black strand of hair tangled around his neck. His hands began to shake. For the first time since leaving the village, Krit understood one terrifying truth. Some promises do not need the living to remember them. Chapter 8. The Chain of Deaths. The first death after Krit's return came 3 days later. It was Krit's new wife. She was not accustomed to the damp air of Bang Krathum, nor to the heavy, wordless stares of the villagers. From the very first night, she complained that the house felt unbearably cold, even though there was no wind. "There's a smell of river water," she said with irritation. "I don't like it." That night, she dreamed of a woman standing behind her in the mirror. When she turned around, no one was there, but when she looked back at the mirror, long, wet black hair covered the glass completely. The next morning, she began speaking to empty air. She stared at something no one else could see, stepping backward, whispering, "Don't look at me like that." Krit thought she was only under stress, until she was found dead in the bathroom. Her body lay slumped in the tub. The water barely reached her ankles. The bathroom door was locked from the inside. There were no signs of struggle. Her face was bluish purple, eyes bulging, mouth open as if she had been trying to breathe underwater. The monk who examined the body said only one sentence: "It was not the water that killed her." After that death, strange incidents spread quickly through the village. A man slipped and fell into the river in broad daylight, even though the ground was dry. An old woman claimed she saw Pimchan standing in front of her house. She was found dead the next morning, suffocated in her sleep. A child burned with fever, delirious, repeatedly calling Krit's name. Each death shared one thing in common: water, soaked clothing, icy skin, faint handprints. The Bang Krathum River began rising at night. Even without rain, fish floated dead along the banks. The water darkened, thickened, as if something were dissolving within it. The villagers began whispering a name: Pimchan. There was no more doubt. The vengeful spirit had crossed the boundary of a single death, and it had no intention of stopping. Chapter 9. The spirit reveals itself. The first time the villagers truly saw Pimchan, dusk was falling. The sunset stained the Bang Krathum River a dark, bleeding red, making the water look like an open wound that had not yet dried. Thick mist rose from the surface, curling around the riverbank and low trees, swallowing the dirt path that led back into the village. Molly was the first to see her. She had been carrying buckets of water when she suddenly stopped, hearing footsteps behind her. The sound was faint but wet, like someone who had just climbed out of the river. When she turned around, the bucket slipped from her hands and hit the ground. Pimchan was standing there. She wore a white dress that had turned gray and filthy, clinging tightly to her thin body. Her long black hair covered most of her face, water dripping steadily from the strands and pooling at her feet. Her feet, however, did not touch the ground. They hovered just slightly above it, enough for anyone looking to know they were seeing something that should not exist. Molly could not scream. Her mouth opened, but only a rasping breath escaped. Pimchan slowly lifted her head. Her eyes were filled with water, dark and deep, like two bottomless rivers. "Give it back." The voice was wet and distorted, as if it came from far beneath the water. "Give back the promise." Molly collapsed. The next morning, she was found dead by the riverbank, her lungs full of water, though there was no sign she had fallen in. After that, Pimchan appeared more and more often. Some villagers saw her standing beneath the Bodhi tree, where the two names were still carved into the trunk. black sap running down like congealed blood. Others saw her sitting on rooftops in the middle of the night, her hair hanging down outside windows, dripping water into the houses below. Anyone who looked directly into Pimchan's eyes suffered the same dream. They dreamed they were standing at the bottom of the river. Water crushed their chests. Cold hands reached from all sides, dragging them deeper. Above them, Pimchan watched in silence. And when they woke, they carried the smell of river water with them, even if they had never left their homes. As night fell, villagers began sealing their doors tightly. But everyone understood one terrifying truth. The spirit no longer needed doors to enter. Chapter 10. The Sorcerer and the Forbidden Ritual. After Molly's death, Bang Kra Thum had no choice left. The villagers invited Ajarn Kit, an elderly sorcerer from the northern mountains of Chiang Mai, said to have subdued water spirits and sealed vengeful souls bound to rivers. He arrived at dusk, carrying an old cloth bag that reeked of bitter herbs mixed with the cold scent of ashes. The moment Ajarn Kit stepped onto the riverbank, the water rippled. He stopped, narrowing his eyes as he studied the river for a long time before speaking. This spirit did not die recently. The ritual was held on a moonless night. An altar was set beneath the Bodhi tree. On it lay dried fish heads, boiled duck eggs, black candles, red thread, and a bowl of river water collected at exactly 2 a.m. Ajarn Kit drew sacred symbols with black ink onto yellow talismans, chanting ancient incantations in a low, broken voice, like he was speaking to something unseen. When the first stick of incense was lit, the wind died completely. The air thickened, heavy enough to crush the chest. The water in the bowl began to tremble. Then bubbles rose to the surface, one after another, as if something were breathing from within. Ajarn Kit suddenly froze. "No," he whispered, "she will not listen." At that moment, a sharp cracking sound echoed from the Bodhi tree. The carved names split open, black sap spilling down onto the altar. All the black candles went out at once, though there was no wind. Laughter drifted from the river. Not loud, not clear, but cold enough to pierce bone. Pimchan appeared behind Ajarn Kit. Her hair concealed her face. Water dripped onto his shoulder, soaking through his robe. Ajarn Kit stiffened, clutching his talisman beads, his lips trembling. "She does not want release," he said, his voice breaking. "She wants the promise returned." Panic swept through the villagers. Ajarn Kit packed his things quickly and left without looking back. Before he went, he spoke one final sentence. "Only the one who made the vow can end this." After that night, no one dared attempt another ritual, because they finally understood something terrifying. The spirit had not been summoned. It had been here all along. Chapter 11. The Night of the Red Moon. The red moon appeared exactly as Ajarn Kit had foretold. No one in Bang Kra Thum had ever seen the moon that color before. It was not a bright crimson, but a dark, murky red, like a giant eye staring down from a sky that felt unbearably low. Its light stained the river the color of diluted blood, making the water seem more terrifying in its stillness. Krit stood alone on the riverbank. No one forced him to be there. No one dared to. The villagers watched from a distance, beneath darkened eaves, as Krit's shadow stretched long across the damp ground. The wind from the river carried its familiar stench, a sour, fishy odor that had followed him through countless sleepless nights. Krit removed his shoes. His bare feet touched the earth, ice cold. He remembered the vow beneath the Bodhi tree. Every word echoed in his mind with merciless clarity. Back then, he had never imagined the river would remember, that the land and water would bear witness. Krit stepped into the river. The water reached only his ankles, yet it was colder than any night before. He moved slowly, one step at a time, as though he knew that if he hurried, there would be no way back. The water around his legs began to ripple, not outward, but inward, circling him like invisible fingers closing in. When the water rose to his knees, Krit heard a voice calling. Not with his ears, but with memory itself. "You promised?" Pimchan stood in the middle of the river. She no longer hid her face. Her skin was pale, her lips purple, her eyes heavy with water reflecting the red moon above. Her white dress floated around her, never sinking, never touching the bottom. "You chose betrayal," Pimchan said calmly, without anger. "So you must stay." The water suddenly rose. Not like a flood. Not with crashing waves. Only the level around Krit increased, slowly. Heavily, clinging to his body. He tried to step back, but his feet no longer touched the riverbed. Beneath the surface, cold hands began to appear. Chapter 12. The promise is spoken again. The hands beneath the water did not rush. They surfaced slowly, pale, cold, clinging to Krit's legs like the roots of a rotten tree. The moment they touched him, his skin went numb, the cold pierced straight into his bones, throwing his heart into a frantic rhythm. Krit looked down and realized the arms were not fully human, blurred, misshapen, as if formed from water and memory. "Pimchan," he whispered, his voice breaking, "I didn't mean to." Pimchan stepped closer. With every step she took, the water parted for her, then closed again behind her. Her face was now close enough for Krit to see every dark bruise around her neck, every strand of hair plastered to her cheeks. Yet there were no tears in her eyes, only the emptiness of a soul that had died too long ago, carrying resentment that had never been spoken aloud. "Do you remember?" she asked softly. "Beneath the Bodhi tree, what did you say?" Krit closed his eyes. He remembered, painfully clearly. "If I ever betray you," Pimchan repeated each word, her voice steady, almost like a chant, "my soul will be dragged to the bottom of this river." The water around them began to swirl. Not violently, but deeply and heavily, like the slow opening of a massive mouth waiting to be fed. Krit struggled, but every movement only made the hands below tighten their grip, pulling him lower, inch by inch. "I'm sorry," Krit sobbed. "I was afraid, I was weak, I never thought it would end like this." Pimchan watched him for a long time. For a brief moment, her face was no longer terrifying. It held only the profound sadness of a girl who had placed her entire faith in a hollow promise. "I don't need your apology," she said. "I only need you to keep your word." The water rose to Krit's chest. His breathing became shallow, broken. He looked at Pimchan one last time, searching for hesitation, any sign of mercy. But Pimchan had already turned away. And the river began to close. Chapter 13. The river claims its due. Water flooded Krit's mouth at the exact moment he managed one final breath. The bitter, fishy cold slammed into his throat, crushing his lungs. He struggled by instinct, arms flailing in the thick black water, but what he touched was not the river's surface. It was other hands. Cold, slick, gripping him tight. They pulled him downward. Not violently. Not suddenly. Just a steady, patient force. As if the river had been waiting for this moment for a very long time. Krit opened his eyes underwater. The red moon above shattered into warped fragments, fading as he was dragged deeper. Around him, blurred human shapes appeared, faceless, formless shadows. They were the drowned, the unjustly dead, their hair floating, their arms reaching out, merging with the current that carried him toward the bottom. Krit's lungs burned. His heart thrashed wildly, then slowed. In the final flicker of consciousness, he saw Pimchan. She stood upon the surface of the river, her white dress floating around her like a dead flower. She did not cry. She did not rage. She only looked down at him with a calm so absolute it was terrifying. "Stay here," her voice echoed, even as water filled his ears. "You promised." A freezing hand pressed against the back of Krit's neck. And pushed. All sound vanished. No moon. No wind. No voices. Only thick, suffocating darkness, and the crushing weight of the riverbed closing around his body like a coffin made of water. The next morning, villagers found Krit's shoes on the riverbank, right beside the Bodhi tree. There was no body. Only the river, flat and dark, and a small whirlpool that refused to fade. Like the trace of a mouth that had just closed. The Bang Kra Thumb River had been paid in full. For a vow that was broken. Chapter 14. The False Silence. After the night Krit vanished, Bang Kra Thumb fell into a strange stillness. There were no more knocks at 2 a.m. No wet footsteps crossing wooden floors. The nightmares of water and icy hands slowly faded. The villagers began to breathe again, though no one dared to say it out loud. The river's level dropped. Its surface grew calmer, no longer thick and pitch dark as before. Fish stopped floating dead along the banks. Children were allowed to play outside during the day again, though they were always called home before sunset. Yet the silence felt too complete, like a room that had been thoroughly cleaned, while the damp stench still lingered in the air. The Bodhi tree by the river no longer bled black sap. The carved names were still there, but the letters had faded, as if time itself were trying to erase them. Still, in the late afternoons, some villagers swore they heard soft whispering coming from the trunk, no words. Just a long, sorrowful murmur. Krit's house was abandoned. No one dared step inside, even though the door was never locked. At night, moonlight streamed through the windows, making the floor gleam as if covered with water, yet when someone gathered the courage to enter, the wood was completely dry. One child asked her mother, "Where did the girl from the river go?" The mother did not answer, because she did not know. One night, a man walking along the riverbank saw two figures standing together beneath the pale moonlight, one tall, one smaller. When he rubbed his eyes and looked again, there was only the quiet river and the distant sound of insects. Too late, the villagers began to understand. A vengeful spirit does not always need to keep killing. Some spirits only need to remain. And sometimes, silence itself is the most terrifying sign of all. Chapter 15. The Bride Beneath the River. Years later, no one spoke Krit's name anymore. His name slowly vanished from fireside tales and whispered conversations among the elders. Only one name remained, Pimchan, spoken softly, cautiously, as if raising one's voice might cause the river itself to hear. The Bang Kra Thum River still flowed through the village. By day, it appeared gentle, like any other river. It reflected blue skies, drifting clouds, and low-flying birds. But at night, especially under the full moon, the water grew unnaturally still, flat as a black mirror. They say that if one stands at the riverbank long enough on such nights, one might see the silhouette of a woman in a white dress beneath the water. She stands very deep, not fully submerged, not rising to the surface. Her long black hair fans out, drifting with the current. Her face tilts upward, eyes wide open, gazing toward the surface as if waiting for someone to step closer. Beside her stands the shadow of a man. He has no face, only a distorted human shape, warped by water, standing so close it seems forever bound. They are holding hands. They do not move. They do not speak. They do not part. Before his death, the old monk once said, "A vow does not disappear when people die. It only changes who guards it." From then on, no one in Bang Kra Thum was allowed to swear promises by the river again. No lovers met beneath the Bodhi tree. No one sealed their feelings with words meant to sound romantic but carried as curses. Yet sometimes, someone still does not believe. Some love too deeply. Some betray too easily. And on rare nights of the red moon, when the wind rises from the river carrying the cold scent of water, a soft whisper can be heard from the depths below. Do not promise, if you cannot keep it. The river continues to flow. And the bride beneath the river is still waiting. They say the river still flows quietly through the village. No screams. No waves. Only silence. But beneath that silence, a bride is still waiting, holding the hand of the man who broke his promise. So remember this: never swear what you cannot keep. Never betray what trusts you completely. Because some spirits do not seek forgiveness. They wait. And the river never forgets.
Like and subscribe to Whispering Dark Tales for more chilling ghost stories.